As part of a cybersecurity awareness program, we'll be reviewing the common threats every employee faces on a regular basis. When you look at actual attacks ranging from small incidents to large-scale compromises, they all contain elements that a fundamental cybersecurity understanding might have prevented. In this part, most common, fundamental, and heavily relied upon security tools, passwords. Often, passwords are a primary line of defense for separating the authenticated users from the unauthenticated users. Many of us are drowning in passwords, yet even with using passwords on a regular basis, we often fail at understanding the positive and negative elements of password security. Let's start with the good things about passwords, the password success stories, if you will. The concept of passwords is simple and inexpensive. Remember, the primary purpose of a password is to determine whether or not a given user is authenticated, and other authentication techniques, such as biometric readers, for example, require significantly more resources to operate correctly. Biometric verification requires additional setup and login time, it's more complicated for the user, and is more expensive to implement. Passwords are simple, and therefore they are often the chosen security technique. Unfortunately, there are also two common serious mistakes with using passwords: poor implementation and poor user decisions. It is both users' actions and implementation that contribute to a majority of modern password security issues. There are numerous ways in which the user makes poor password decisions. The most common mistakes users make is choosing a simple, easy-to-guess password. Beyond the obvious passwords such as "let me in," "password 1," or "I love you," what constitutes an easy-to-guess password by modern standards? This can be answered by understanding how an attacker might attack a password by guessing. Attackers understand that users often choose common words, phrases, acronyms, and names as their password. So, attackers create lists of these commonly used passwords and use simple programs to guess every password on the list. This is referred to as a dictionary attack. These lists could be a few thousand passwords long and are successful at compromising many accounts. However, realize this problem doesn't stop here. There are password lists on the internet, could be millions of passwords long. Some have been constructed, others are actual passwords that were published by hackers after being stolen out of a company's database. So with the ability to create a password that is very complex, we often choose one that is easy to remember instead. Another common way users fail to use passwords securely is by reusing the same password for multiple accounts. Additionally, accounts are often linked to other accounts for convenience, and this can lead to a chain of compromises from a single password. Also, as general password awareness in society improves, users are commonly putting numbers at the end of their mediocre passwords in the hopes of making it stronger. But again, attackers realize this common technique, and after compromising one account, can quickly see if a password works, ends in the same numbers, and attempts to increment the numbers to access another account. Lack of variation between passwords undermines security. Finally, users are bad at protecting the secrecy of their passwords. As users adjust to having numerous complex passwords, they often write down the password and leave their password list unsecured in the open on a sticky note, or in a file saved on their desktop, or written down in the top drawer of their desk. Often users are overly trusting and tell their password to other people such as coworkers or spouses. In addition to humans doing dumb things with passwords, poor implementation plays a significant role in the effectiveness of password security as a tool. Poor implementation refers to how the authorization or logon process fails to protect the password from being compromised or exploited. Here's a couple of examples. Knowing that users like to choose simple and easy to remember passwords, administrators create complexity rules to try to overcome the bad security decisions of the users. However, depending on how the complexity enforcement is set up, it still might not be sufficient. Remember, there are a lot of examples on the internet of actual passwords. How many of us use our bad passwords with the first letter capitalized in combination with some numbers and symbols on the end to satisfy the complexity filter? If the complexity rules are too lax, they will be ineffective at protecting users from themselves at password creation time. In order to counter the bad habit of users having to share or leak passwords, knowingly or unknowingly, users often have to periodically change their password every 90 days, for example. However, finding the right balance with frequency of change can also undermine security. If users have to change their passwords constantly, again, they will choose the path of easiest to remember and often end up choosing exactly the same base password with an incrementing number or symbol at the end. Or users will end up writing down their password and failing to secure their password sheet. Also, to fight against attackers from guessing thousands of common passwords, accounts often have a lockout window after a number of failed attempts. Failure to implement a sensible lockout period can leave medium-strength passwords more vulnerable to a brute force or dictionary attack. A final common configuration mistake is when an information system fails to secure where or how the passwords are stored. In the past, computers would save the password in a folder that was tricky to access. However, a savvy attacker could bypass security measures and read the passwords right out of the save file. To deal with this insecurity, passwords are typically not saved on computers today. Instead, the computer uses the password to create a hash of the password and saves the hash instead. A hash is a mathematical way of scrambling or obfuscating the password into a hash string. The most common concept about this type of hashing are there are no reversible way to go from the hash directly back to the password. Also, no two passwords could possibly create the same hash. So, when a user logs in on a modern computer, the computer takes the user's input, computes the hash, and then checks to see if the computed hash matches the saved hash from when the password was originally set. In this case, the computer doesn't store your password. So, getting back to password security, if an older system does not use or does not have a secure way of storing the password, then a compromise could be much more severe. Ideally, administrators are not only hashing all the passwords, but have also taken additional precautions to secure the hash database further. That way, even if there was a total breach of the password hash database, there will still be enough time for people to change their passwords before attackers would be able to figure out what those passwords actually are. Here are some good guidelines to understanding password security. Humans are not good at acting randomly, especially when creating passwords. Complexity and length are critical for countering how attackers guess and discover passwords. Learn to let go. Changing passwords is often required for maintaining security. Always protect the locations that passwords are recorded, either written or on the computer. A secure password management system is crucial. Perhaps consider using a password manager. There are many guides available to creating a good password. Find one that works for you. So what's the takeaway? Human nature is the weakest aspect of password security. Advances in technology are continuously raising the bar for baseline password security standards. But passwords aren't going away anytime soon, so understanding how to properly use passwords and why is critical for a fundamental cybersecurity defense.